Hey everyone, welcome back for another Geep Dive.
It's great to be here.
We know you're all busy prepping for the UPSC exams and every minute counts.
That's right. So we're going to make sure this is time well spent for you.
Today we're going to really dissect this new set of draft rules.
Yeah, the draft digital personal data protection rules to be exact.
Oh, and by the way, you can find a great analysis of these in the Hindu.
Super helpful resource for sure.
So, Mary, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology released these.
Right, and they're based on the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023.
And as you know, data protection is a hot topic.
Huge for both mains and potentially prelims.
Could be a real game changer how this all plays out.
Absolutely. So we need to understand the core issues here.
And especially, how these draft rules set up the appeals process.
The nuts and bolts of how this will actually work in practice.
Okay, let's start with the Data Protection Board, or the DPB for short.
Sure. So this is going to be the main body dealing with data protection disputes.
Like if someone feels their data rights have been violated?
Exactly. They can take their grievance to the DPB.
Now, one thing that's causing a bit of a stir is how DPB members are appointed.
Yeah, the draft rules give the union government a lot of say in that.
So what's the concern with that?
Well, it raises questions about the board's independence.
Like, could it be influenced by the government?
That's the worry. Our system is built on this idea of separation of powers.
Right, different branches of government keeping each other in check.
Exactly. So if one branch has too much control over another...
It could throw things out of balance.
And in this case, if the government is heavily involved in appointing DPB members...
Would they really be free to make impartial decisions?
Tough to say, but it definitely raises concerns about fairness.
So for you listening, think about it this way.
Your personal data is at stake here.
And the fairness of the DPB could directly impact your rights?
It's something to really consider.
Now let's move on to the appeal process.
Right. How do you challenge a decision if you disagree with the DPB?
The draft rules lay out a path to appeal to the TDSAT.
That's the Telecom Disputes Settlement and Appellate Tribunal.
And they've set a 6-month deadline for resolving these appeals.
Sounds good on paper, quick resolution, right?
In theory, yeah, but there are some practical challenges.
Oh, definitely the first one being the TDSAT's current workload.
They're already swamped with cases.
Mostly from the telecom sector, their bread and butter.
I think the Hindu mentioned they have like 3,448 cases pending.
Yeah, between 2020 and 2025, that's a huge backlog.
So realistically, can they handle a flood of new data protection cases on top of that?
And still meet that 6-month deadline? It's a big question mark.
Plus, data protection is a whole different ballgame than telecom disputes.
Totally different areas of law and expertise.
The TDSAT is set up to handle telecom issues.
Right, they have technical members with deep knowledge of that field.
But data protection brings in privacy laws, consent mechanisms, data processing.
All very specialized stuff that the TDSAT might not be equipped for.
It's like asking a heart surgeon to perform brain surgery.
They're both doctors, but very different specializations.
And then there's the whole digital filing aspect.
Yeah, the draft rules say appeals have to be filed online.
Which makes sense in our digital age.
Streamlining the process, but...
The TDSAT's current system isn't exactly known for being user-friendly.
There have been complaints about its accessibility and reliability.
So if the system is clunky or crashes all the time...
It could actually delay the appeals process even more.
Imagine trying to file a complex appeal on a website that keeps freezing.
Not a recipe for efficiency.
So for you listening, picture yourself in that situation.
You're trying to exercise your rights, but the system itself is an obstacle.
That's a real problem. And then there's the issue of transparency.
A big one, the draft rules don't explicitly require the DPB and TDSAT to publish detailed annual reports on how they're handling data protection cases.
So we wouldn't know how many appeals are being filed, how they're being decided, what kinds of issues are coming up.
Exactly. And without that information, how can we hold them accountable?
How do we know they're actually protecting our rights?
Transparency builds trust, and right now that's lacking.
So think about it. How important is transparency to you?
When it comes to something as sensitive as your personal data.
Now, the Hindu's analysis also pointed out some possible reforms for the TDSAT.
Ways to strengthen its ability to handle these new challenges.
First up, they need a specialist, someone with deep expertise in data protection.
Makes sense, right? You need someone who really understands the nuances.
The suggestion is to amend the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act of 1997.
Specifically, Section 14C, to mandate a technical member with data protection expertise on the TDSAT.
Because data protection law is its own beast.
It's not just about technical telecom stuff, it's about privacy consent, cross-border data flows.
You need someone who gets all that.
And then there's the workload issue.
They need more resources to handle the influx of cases.
More funding to set up additional benches, hire more staff.
It's not enough to just give them more work.
You got to give them the tools to do the job properly.
And of course, they need a serious tech upgrade.
That website needs a complete overhaul.
It needs to be user-friendly, accessible, and reliable.
No more crashes, no more confusion, just a smooth and efficient system.
Because technology should help, not hinder the appeals process.
And finally, we come back to transparency.
Those annual reports are crucial.
But they need to be detailed and specific.
Separate data for data protection appeals versus telecom and broadcasting appeals, so we can see exactly how each area is being handled.
That level of detail is key for accountability.
So to sum up, these reforms are essential for the TDSAT to function effectively as the appellate body for data protection issues.
It's about ensuring the system works as intended.
And protecting our rights in the digital world.
It's all connected.
All right, so listeners, let's do a quick recap.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We started with the draft Digital Personal Data Protection Rules.
And the concerns about the DPB's independence.
Then we dug into the appeals process and the TDSAT's role.
Highlighting the challenges they face.
Their heavy workload, the need for specialized knowledge.
The tech issues, the lack of transparency.
And we explored some key reforms that could address these issues.
Like adding a data protection expert to the TDSAT.
Increasing their resources, improving their tech, and demanding more transparency. As you prepare for your UTSC exams, think about this.
How do these rules and the existing systems balance individual rights with innovation?
It's a complex question with no easy answers.
And it's one you'll need to grapple with.
Understanding these nuances of policy and institutional mechanisms is crucial for your mains prep.
Especially if data protection comes up.
And this knowledge can be helpful from prelims, too.
So keep it in mind.
We encourage you to dive deeper into the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023.
And keep an eye on how these draft rules evolve.
We based our discussion today on a report from The Hindu.
Great resource for staying informed.
If you found this deep dive helpful,
We'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed.
and feel free to leave a comment below with any questions or areas you'd like us to cover in future deep dives.
We love hearing from you.
All right, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye for now.